Hello and welcome to my channel. I am Christina and today I'm going on a little bit of an adventure to figure out how to fill watercolor pans. This might be how to fill watercolor pans, or it might be how really not to fill watercolor pans, because I have never done this before. My roommate was kind enough to get me this for Christmas. It is a watercolor half pan tin and it holds 48 watercolor half pans. Ta-da! She actually got herself the exact same tin, so we would have matching tins. And she has already gone ahead and filled hers up and tested a little bit and labeled the side of each pan with the color. I'm going to be doing that, and probably also that it's Daniel Smith, because I'm going to be filling it up with this and this. And then my roommate was generous enough to let me use all her beautiful remaining, My roommate was kind enough to let me use these, as this is what did not fit in the pans that she used and filled up already. So we'll be using the half pans in this tin, the Sharpie marker, a palette knife, and brushes, just in case we need those. Let's go ahead and get started, and I hope you enjoy watching me figure this out.
The first thing I did was I started labeling pans. One side had the specific name of the paint, and the next one had they were Daniel Smith, just in case I decide to put different types of watercolors in these pans. And then I'll of course label the name of those and then whatever brand of watercolors they are. This labeling process actually took a long time, much longer than I thought it would, basically. It also presented some challenges because I thought the Sharpie marker might not fully stick to the pans, and the pans on the outside are slightly textured, so that kind of happened, but they stayed and they are still on there, so it's just the initial little bit of waiting for it to dry. It did bother me a little bit that I didn't get a fully smooth application of the Sharpie because, of course, it was a little textured.
Okay, first little one is empty. Yay! Now I need to find something to use that with.
Once I got all of that labeling done, I was ready to start putting the paint in the pans. Initially, I thought it would be a great idea to have all the pans lined up according to the Roy G. Biv, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet of a rainbow.
So what I'm doing right now is I'm taking all the pans that I've labeled and lining them up according to where everything is. So this represents this row and this represents this row. And then I just have buff, Chinese white, and lunar black going right here. So what I'm doing is I'm setting these up first, and then I'll fill them once they're already in here so that they can all be together and I'm less likely to lose them while they're drying, which could be a huge mistake. So this is alizarin crimson. Alizarin crimson's right here. Mayan blue genuine. Mayan blue genuine is 1, 2, 3, 4 in. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's just what I'm doing. Okay, we're gonna start with the alizarin crimson. So it turns out I've been doing this wrong. I asked my roommate again, and she said that instead of putting the paint into this while it's in the container, you take it out, fill it, put it back in.
After that first alizarin crimson pan, I removed each individual tin to fill them. Otherwise, this would have been an exercise solely in frustration, and yeah, it would have just been super frustrating. It does take a little bit of effort to get them in the tin after you filled them. However, that's much easier than trying to navigate around the pan that's already placed in there. because if you have it outside of the tin, then you can turn it whichever angle best suits your hands and what specific tool you're using, and gives you more flexibility like that, versus being in the tin. It's just flat on a flat surface unless you're manipulating the whole tin. I have to give a shout out to the palette knife because it became extremely useful when working on each pan. It helped me get the paint into each corner, and if I cared enough, I could have used it to smooth the paint out in a little more. It was also very shiny, and it makes me happy. But it is basically the most useful tool. My roommate did offer me some plastic palette knives, but this one worked so well, I didn't end up using them, and also I think the paint cleans up much better off of metal than off of plastic. But if plastic is the only thing you have, if you are filling watercolor tins, feel free to use it. It'll still get the job done. What did prove to be difficult was getting the little tubes of paint that had already been used to get the last little bits out, because I don't really want to waste paint. This is expensive paint, and they're little tubes and they're made of metal. So it took a lot of effort to make sure I got every little bit out. So I would squeeze it from the bottom up, and then once I could do all of that, then I was folding the top over onto the body of the squished paint tube to try and get a little bit out at the very last bit, and then I would take the palette knife or the brush and go ahead and scoop out the last bit of paint and put that in the pan. So this little paintbrush did end up being super duper useful during the whole process. It and the palette knife are the MVPs of this whole process. Something I did not mention in the initial I need this was water and a handy dandy little paper towel, because you need to clean off the palette knife between each of them, and of course, like when you dip your fingers into the paint, you kind of need to clean it off. So the best way to do that is wipe it off on a paper towel and then get a little water on it and wipe it off again, and then your fingers mostly don't have paint on them. Also, you should note, this drying time took almost half a week, and really a full week for everything to fully dry. I just really didn't want to go ahead and use any of this until it was fully dry, so I didn't mess up the pans in any way. But for you, it could take more or less time depending on how dry or humid the environment is around you. But for context, I am in the middle of winter in a house full of radiators, and there's no humidifier in the room I was working in, so I would have thought it would dry faster. I did close the tin because I didn't want dust in it, so that could also impact how fast it dried, because it would have kept everything in a more humid environment. In the midst of this, I did have a little bit of craziness. I ended up hitting all of the blues into each other, and I have like a smudge on the palette now. And I had to clean the different blues out of each other because they kind of landed on top of each other, and with wet paint, it just got everywhere. So, wish that hadn't happened, but it did. And then at certain points, I got like yellow and red on my fingers, just like dipping them into the paint. But at the very end, like besides the blue, I was like, okay, I'm almost done. I was very tired. It had taken a couple hours to get this done. And I ended up sticking my thumb directly into the blue or black paint. And it was just a moment of, I almost beat this. It was a little bit defeating. But it mostly came off. I almost had to paint my nails because I had black caked under my nails. What I think could have made this experience better was knowing that I needed to fill the watercolor pans outside of the tin initially. And I also realized that I spent a very, very long time organizing the watercolors and making sure they were right order according to what they looked like on the tube. But I just should have waited, because I know this, colors on the tube and colors in the tube are entirely different sometimes. So my crazy organization of putting them in Roy G. Biv and making sure they lined up in that order was useless because they look entirely different. Now you can see me testing out all of the paint to organize them properly. I may make a cheat sheet in the future just to know which one is which without lifting or pushing the pans around, because they are secured by the little metal tabs, but that might not happen just because they are on the pans, so I see myself pushing that off to the distant future. Overall, at the end, this process was very satisfying, but mostly satisfying to be done. I have to tell you, my thumbs and forefingers hurt after squeezing the paint out of each tube, and for the future, I would strongly consider just buying pre-made Daniel Smith pans because it was a lot of work. And you know, I got expensive watercolor on my thumb and forefinger, and that kind of feels wasteful, but if I'm going to purchase any more of those, I'll have to look at that when the time comes. But I think I did all right for my first time doing this. The brand and supplier for the tins are listed below. They're on Amazon, and again, this is a gift, so I don't know how much it is. That's up to Amanda to add that in. But they worked pretty well, and I was overall very pleased. My only complaint would be that the outside of the pans weren't smooth, and so the Sharpie didn't apply very evenly on the sides, but I also acknowledge that that probably made the pans so much easier to hold while I was filling them, so it's kind of like a little bit of give or take. Now, if you are going to do this, I highly recommend that you go ahead and, you know, do a little more research than I did, because I should have just gone ahead and looked at other people's videos before I did this, but I kind of wanted to go on a little bit of an adventure and see what the process is like if I don't have a ton of information. So yeah, that's all I have for the moment, so let's go back to my face and talk for like 2 seconds.
I hope you've enjoyed this video. This is me from the past. I have no idea how this whole project went. I'm just here to film the outro. So I hope you've enjoyed this video and that it helped you in some way, whether entertaining you on how badly it went or educating you on how it could go positively. But yeah, if you have any information on how to do this properly, please leave it down below to help me in the future and to help other people. If you have liked this video, go ahead and hit the like button. If you didn't like it, go ahead and hit that. But if you want to stay up to date with my videos, you can go ahead and hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you can get notified every time I upload a video. And I think that's all. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time. Bye. And now I can just film the excuse me. Piemont? Piemonite? Piemont. Montite? Huh. Now I'm going to